All right, welcome along to the RTÉ Soccer Podcast. Raf Diallo here, and I'm joined by former Dundalk manager and Longford Town legend Vinny Perth and journalist David Sneyd. Lads, I hope you're both keeping well on this, I think the first proper sunny day we've had in a while. Unfortunately, I think Joe Biden missed all of this when he was here.
Sorry, Raf, did you call me a Longford legend?
Longford Town legend.
Oh, Jesus. That's quite the compliment.
I think the last time you were on, I think I used it. You might have just missed. You might have missed those three words coming through. But anyway, look, you take the praise where it comes. Anyway.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And, you have to update your social media profiles now with that, Vinny. You know what I mean? To get that top billing.
Longford legend, according to Raf.
Yeah. Anyway, well, look, I used to support Longford when I was young, so I think you can take the praise from me anyway. whether it's worth anything or not, I'm not sure. But anyway, look, we'll be chatting SSE Airtricity League and much more of it later on. But first, on last week's podcast, we were talking a lot about Neil Farrugia's potential after a brilliant performance for Shamrock Rovers at Bows and some glowing comments from Stephen Bradley as manager post-match. And a few days later, Dr. Kevin O'Grady got in touch with me about the work he's been doing with Neil on his game. And then lo and behold, on Saturday, David, I click open the 42.ie and I saw you'd also been chatting to Kevin, albeit you've told me off air that actually you've been in contact with him a little bit longer, and you were also chatting to Jamie McGrath and about the exact same thing. And this is about Incision Football, which is a platform that a number of younger Irish players have been using with Dr. Kevin O'Grady to sort of hone their game. So you might tell me a little bit about your piece, what Incision Football is about, and then just in regards to Jamie McGrath and how he was the guinea pig for all of this.
Yeah, it was an interesting one, because like, I know you were joking about it. So I'd pretty much been starting writing this article about a month ago, and then my wife went into labour, so I had to put that on the back burner for a little bit, and then I got around to finishing it over last week. But it was just a bit of an interesting one. It's one of them where you see now all the time, say on social media, on Instagram and all the rest of it, the other footballers who'll post stuff up when they're in the gym, doing extras or doing finishing work on the training pitch and stuff. And then, like you've just got in touch about, there are a lot of players, younger players, who kind of are wanting to try and understand the game a bit more themselves, understand certain actions and moments, and try and have a better, again, understanding seemed to be the big thing, understanding of when to make certain decisions in games. And I just thought it was pretty interesting from the point of view of listening to a coach like, say, Dr. Kevin O'Grady, who, is a doctor. He's the son of Donald O'Grady, who led Cork to an All-Ireland hurling championship. It was more so interesting just from the point of view of how does it actually work between, say, the player wanting to have that extra understanding of, say, tactical awareness in games and making those decisions, but then also when you've got demands from a manager, which is ideal now that Vinny is on, but when you've got certain demands from a manager, and like even the fact that we say with Jamie McGrath, who's on loan now, obviously at Dundee United from Wigan, and you're fighting for your life in a relegation battle. Well, how do those two correlate between wanting to learn and soak in more information, which someone like Jamie definitely wants to do, and then obviously deliver for your manager and have those results? So, so obviously that piece went up over the weekend, and it was just, I thought it was interesting from the point of view of players will say fire the WhatsApp on, and you have a conversation over coffee, over Zoom, and it'll be very much player led from the point of view of what they know they need to work on. But then also as that relationship with Dr. O'Grady, Kevin O'Grady, would develop, then that he can kind of pick things a little bit, because obviously he's a qualified coach. He was actually on one of the coaching licenses with Stephen O'Donnell, the Dundalk manager. So it's just another element to it, of maybe. You mentioned there as well, there is a lot of the younger lads, a lot like Conor Coventry, the former Ireland 21s captain. He'd be one of the lads who does this. Obviously Neil Farrugia as well. Andy Lyons, who's gone over to Blackpool now from Rovers, had a great season. Seems to be maybe, I don't know, maybe hopefully it's a good sign of some of the players who want to maybe have a bit of a, I don't know, just extend their knowledge of the game and understanding, because this is one of the aspects from what I was trying to think, well, how does it reckon? Because games can be so thick and fast, coming so thick and fast, and how do you actually remember certain stuff, like any tactical thing? And I just hopefully, like, people, if you're reading it, might kind of get a bit of a different, another bit of a sense of, well, some of the extra work a lot of lads are now starting to do on the mental side of the game, and that understanding of it as well,
Yeah, and the overall kind of, I suppose, point of it is the focus is on helping in-game decision making through those tailored sessions online. And the other thing, because as you said, there's that, I suppose, the relationship between the clubs and what the players are doing outside. So what Kevin O'Grady says to you. It's working within the parameters of how their manager wants them to play is the priority. And Vinny, I mean, this is a thing where I suppose players are going out of their own way to do little bits of extra work outside. As a manager, is that something that you actually find kind of encouraging, even though maybe it's coming from outside the remit of the coaching setup at the club?
Yeah, no, I think if a player is going off and doing his own thing in the sense of investing in his own personal development and trying to achieve his own goals, it tells you you've got a player in a really healthy mindset. Okay, so first of all, you should be seen as a positive. But there's no doubt a coach or manager needs to also have some sort of insight in terms of what's being discussed, because in every football team there's obviously small details where you're expecting someone like particularly Jamie in terms of his role and what's required of him, and so it's something that you would largely welcome, but you will also be very conscious of what's being discussed. And it used to be parents a lot. Parents, and even of senior players, it used to be parents, and but the fact that this program seems to be with more people with bigger understanding of the game and the mentality that's required around the game, that's obviously a help. But you'd be also surprised amount of players that still turn to parents or brothers and discuss stuff with them, and so it does tell you players are looking for some other means to do it. But and also an individual coach is become the norm in a lot of clubs now as well, where people are reviewing one-on-one training sessions, not necessarily with the manager, but with an individual coach who'll go through detailed stuff with them. And as I said, if a player's got that growth mindset, as a coach, you'd be really happy to hear him doing his own stuff.
That point that even Vinny makes about, say, fellas turning to, say, parents or brothers or even that close circle. Obviously, you hear a lot of the time, especially growing up, back in the car, and the dad or the mum would say, "Oh, you had a good game today," or "You weren't great." But a lot of the time, it's almost as if players want to hear what they want to hear and say, "Oh, no, you're great, you're brilliant. The manager's doing X, Y, and Z. He should be doing that for you." And it's almost as if they want to be reaffirmed that they're in the right and the manager's in the wrong, because no one wants to be told, "Well, you know what, you have to do something a bit different here because there's a reason why you're not in the team, or there's a reason why you're not delivering." And that's what I actually found quite interesting from Jamie, because he was the only player that I spoke to. Again, just to be honest, just from time constraints in terms of getting the piece out and stuff. But he was making the point that he even felt himself, there was times, even though he was doing well, that he was on the periphery of games and the periphery of moments. So like getting into certain aspects where he was like, you know what, he actually realised himself sometimes maybe not just standing back in games and letting the game maybe pass him by a little bit and not actually influencing it maybe as he felt he could have if he was being a bit more assertive. And I think that from a player, and he's not a young lad anymore, let's be honest. Like, I think, was he 27 now? I think like he's got a bit of experience behind him. And he's also got, let's be honest, he's also got experience of the tough side of it in terms of obviously going over to St. Mirren initially, getting a move to Wigan, talk about decisions, but maybe people look at that move hasn't really worked out for him because he's had to go and have a couple of loans. But that's where I think from a player like for him, and obviously in around the Ireland setup, made his Ireland debut not long after starting doing some of this work as well, which I don't think was all down to that, but it's just another factor to it. He made that when he made his debut against Portugal. But I just think it's important that when you see the fact that you've got a player who's actually willing to actually hold his hands up a little bit and say, you know what, I needed to do a bit more and be aware of what he needed to do differently. He wasn't just going and saying like, I'm great at this. I don't understand why things aren't working. He kind of had that understanding that he did need to do more in terms of making those decisions in games. One of the points he made was just examining some of the movements, but also some of the positivity that, say, Thomas Muller would have in terms of certain runs from certain positions. And that's only one little small thing, but that was quite interesting. And then just finally on the point, I thought it's only when I was chatting to Kevin O'Grady about this, and he mentioned Andy Lyons being one of his players, because it brought me back to the start of last season when he obviously went from Bows to Rovers and was having a great start of the season, and got chatting to people about Andy Lyons at that point, and they all, even within the Rovers dressing room, then obviously Stephen Bradley and his staff, they just said how quick he took on information and how keen he was to get information. And that is such a big thing for any player. Like, if you're able to take that information on and use it and not have a manager have to worry about drilling something into you 5, 6, 7, 8 times, that if he tells you once, you cop on and you use it. You know what I mean? I think that could be a thing that obviously he's gone off to Blackpool now. They're going through a bit of turmoil, but in terms of having that career, and managers, and again, Vinny will know this, managers not having to worry about, especially for defenders, whatever, you know, have to drill something into them, have to do extra work just in a session. If a fella is getting information and is using it straight away, it's ideal.
Yeah, and the amount of goals he scores from wing back, like even with Blackpool in recent times, I think that probably tells you something about someone who wants to understand space and where to be and different things. And he was scoring a good few. He was on a good run last season with Shamrock Rovers as well. But just finally on this regard to Jamie McGrath, Vinny, I remember I think it was about 18 months ago, I was interviewing Jim Goodwin, who's now the Dundee United manager till the end of the season. He was managing Aberdeen earlier this season before parting ways with them. But at St Mirren before that, he would have had Jamie McGrath and a clutch of Irish players. And I remember he told me in regards to McGrath, McGrath would have arrived at St Mirren with the characteristics of a number 10, and then the whole thing was about turning him into more of an 8. And coincidentally, what we've seen of him in an Ireland shirt, he's pretty much your quintessential number 8, sort of breaking the lines. The Jamie McGrath you remember working with at Dundalk, and then the one you see now, like, is it a journey that you can kind of track and that you can kind of see visually as well?
Yeah, I think we also have to be careful, because you listen to people talking about, say, even Spurs, about mentality, and it's such a lazy word. With Jamie, when he first arrived, I think we felt, myself and Stephen felt, Jamie was a little bit safe in his play, and he'd get the ball off a fullback and he'd switch it to another fullback. But the mentality of us at that time, we wanted Jamie to take it on a half turn and put one over behind. He had the quality to put it in behind for Michael Duffy. He set up a goal scoring chance and taking those risks. And I think what Jamie got better as, like in 2019, he was outstanding. That was his best season for Dundalk. He was just simply outstanding and probably one of the best players in the league. And I think where that was built on is he got braver in his play. We always felt there was goals in him, but he wasn't a natural goal scorer. And I remember texting him at one stage when he was scoring for Wigan, going, I could have done with a few of them goals last year, pal. Like, what you doing, you know? But it is, and and the only other point I'll make on it is, it's not for everybody. That it's not. I've met so many players who learn differently, and it's the same in any sort of learning environment. You know, some people learn through books, and when you coach a player who's come through the UCD system, it is brilliant because he gets things. But it doesn't mean they're the most talented. And you get someone who's a natural street footballer, and he wants to learn by being on the pitch, by learning through drills, by, you know, going through phases of play. And other players just want to learn through video. So it's not for everybody. It's not something that's going to, just because it's working for Jamie, every parent in Irish football should be signing their son up to this. Everyone is different. We all learn differently. And but going back to Jamie, he's got a growth mindset, and he had that in 18 and 19. As I said, he was probably our player of the season, and it's great to see him continue to learn, and that's something that other players should look at and take note.
Yeah, and anyway, I'll be hopefully chatting to Dr. Kevin O'Grady myself in depth anyway over the next couple of weeks, and some of the players as well who've been kind of using the platform. But turning our attentions to the SSE Airtricity League, and this Friday we do have a live match on RT2 and the RT Player, 7:45 p.m. kickoff. It's Shelbourne against Dundalk, so you can mark that down in your diary. But last Friday anyway, Pats beat Bows 3-2 at Dalymount Park. Quite a lot happened in that game, and we're going to go into detail on that very shortly. Then Shamrock Rovers and Shelbourne, which was the TV game on RTÉ, a 2-2 draw there between them. UCD beat Cork City 1-0. Again, a huge victory there for UCD that we'll get into. And then on Saturday, Sligo Rovers and Drogheda drew 1-1. And then yesterday, and a game that was pushed back because of Joe Biden's visit to Ireland, Dundalk and Derry City was played on the Sunday, and it was a 2-2 draw there. But first, we're going to start on the Shelbourne Shamrock Rovers game, and this is Damien Duff speaking post-match.
I think it's 2 points drop for sure, and that's testament to the guys. You're coming away to the most difficult place in the country, best squad, best players, biggest budget, best team, and we're disappointed we didn't win the game.
How do you make the jump then to see out a result like that?
Listen, we just keep working hard. That's all I ever do here. Yeah, we reflect, we'll do post-match video, etc. But all you can do is just keep building and building and building. Like I said, we deserve to win the game tonight. I'm sure Stephen will say different, but we had the best chances, set up really well. The guys played, I couldn't be proud of them. They're in there gutted, but they looked a proper team.
Set pieces again, proving costly.
Yeah, listen, sometimes I'm not taking the guys out, but it's that bit of naivety and them taking responsibility. You know, Jack Burns set up, he's not shooting. There's 4 in the wall and we're weak on the backside for the wide free kick. So, listen, the lads are good with that here.
Listen, I don't want to be dismissive and talk about, the development of this team, the growth of this team. Is that all part of the narrative tonight? That because here you are now 2 seasons in a row, you're going to walk away from Tala having not taken 3 points in a game that you should have taken 3 points from. That's very difficult to take, irrespective of the gulf in budgets and the gulf in squads. Yeah, listen, it is, but here I'll go home and have a glass of wine tonight, and it's my son Woody's birthday, so I'll soon have to forget about it. But I think it's again testament to the club, the players. They bought into everything that I and the staff have offered them. And yeah, they're disappointed they haven't won. You forget we're a newly promoted team. We're only in the league for 5 rounds of games, if you understand what I mean. So yeah, to become to Tala, hard luck story, but they were absolutely outstanding. I don't think anyone in the ground can disagree with me. Is it difficult for them to accept that? Like, do they know that in the moment, or is that something that just needs to sink in over the next day or two?
Listen, it's a strange one in a way. Yeah, we're disappointed going away, but they have to, grow and give belief. Jesus, yeah, we've come, we've give. Like I said, the best team in the country by a mile, a proper game. I believe you're with us again next week. So here, we'll see how they respond to it next week.
Should you have had a penalty?
Well, I was having a bit of a banger on the touchline. I'm not sure whether it was. If you're looking for me to comment on the officials in this league, just copy and paste what I said a couple of weeks ago.
Just a final, you're missing big players, experienced players again tonight. You talked about it being a young squad. How important is maybe the bit of composure and the experience? Was that something that could have made a big difference in the second half when that wave of pressure was coming on?
Absolutely not. I think if you look at the goals, if you look at Matty Smith's goal, it's pure calm, composure and quality. So no, I think Stephen said in his pre-match build-up that we defend in a low block. We don't. They have the best players. They build the game well. They get up the pitch. So inevitably you end up on the edge of your box. So no, listen, the guys were absolutely amazing. They were full of calmness, composure and quality, and I'm disappointed for them.
Enjoy the birthday party. Thank you for your
very
time.
Much. Cheers.
All right, so that was Damien Duff speaking to Damien O'Mara after the 2-2 draw between Shelbourne and Shamrock Rovers. Vinny, just on this, we were talking in the last few weeks on this podcast about Shelbourne's, they're very well organised and defensively their record is brilliant. But going forward, it wasn't always clicking, and yet here they cut through Shamrock Rovers a couple of times on the break and were sort of brilliant on that front.
Yeah, I thought it was a really, really strong performance for them. I think if I can have me moan of the week would be the pitch in Tala was excellent. And no surprise when you have a really good pitch that good footballers can play good football. And I think Tolka pitch is good, but the difference with going to Tala and the surroundings and it just seemed to inspire some of the players. I thought they were excellent. The way they moved the ball, the way they cut through Shamrock Rovers, and they exploited Shamrock Rovers' shape allows you some space in wide areas, and they exploited that at different stages. And I just thought it was an outstanding performance from Shells. And I seen them the week before against Sligo, where albeit they won, I wasn't that impressed with them in terms of and how they played. But the other night they were really unlucky not to win it. I think a draw was probably a fair result, despite what Damien says. But I just thought some of their movement, the goal by Matty Smith, that was an excellent play. Jack Moylan was brilliant the way he laid the ball. But it was more than that. There was big performances. Shane Griffin and Paddy Barr showed the real experience at the back, and they were comfortable and they passed the ball well. And no shock, you give people a good pitch and they pass the ball well on it. And they were outstanding, and I've seen them maybe 4 times live this year, and that was probably the best performance.
Yeah, and David, on the set piece front as well, obviously Pico Lopez's equaliser at the very end, he was unmarked. I think there was also another Shamrock Rovers player behind him as well, so that has been a little bit of an Achilles heel.
Yeah, it was 3-on-1, and it's only when you look at it, at no point did he seem actually properly set to actually defend the free kick, and that's obviously what Duff has said, isn't it? And that you can see that maybe that bit of naivety where you can tell that it's not going to be a shot on goal. You've got 4 fellas in the wall. You just maybe you drag a couple of them out and just get a couple more bodies, because even again, Vinny knows this. He's the coach and manager like that. That should be something that on the pitch players should be able to recognise, because if you look back at it, And I was just looking back at it again this morning, just to kind of double check. At no point, I don't think at any point is there anybody near Lopez. You know, and considering it's Jack Bourne, it's not as if you could maybe take a bit of a risk here and say, you know what, the delivery might not be great. 9 times out of 10 with Jack Bourne, you know, the delivery is going to be fantastic. And even in the game, with how he was playing, he was doing well. He was creating stuff. Like, you know, he knew what was coming, and it kind of begged belief just how that goal was conceded. And it was, I'd say, it was kind of the best. They're still a bit inconsistent, Shells. There's no doubt about it. It's just the nature of teams throughout the league, really. But even with teams like that as well, you're going to have maybe performances that are 9 out of 10 in certain aspects of the game, but then could be 2 out of 10. That was one of them, because like that goal they got, the Moylan goal, everything about that, in terms of the fact that the ball wasn't just, this is obviously from the pass, wasn't it McManus the pass into Moylan, the fact that it wasn't just launched into space and cleared the lines, it was that bit of composure, it was that bit of just finesse about it. And then you have Moylan. It was actually funny, because the thing that was coming to my head when he was in the race, where O'Hara was thinking, I don't think he's going to win it, because I remember being in one of the first ever matches at Talca when Duff had taken charge, and he absolutely went through Jack Moylan and called him lazy legs because he wasn't putting enough graft in or whatever. And that's obviously something maybe that's working, because it's all well and good him saying that you can have that little flick over the top, but then getting on top of it and then having that sense of composure to be able to slow it down a little bit and then play that perfectly weighted pass. It's kind of reminded me a little bit of, remember the Arsenal-Liverpool match a couple of weeks ago in the last minute when Martinelli has that ball to slip in for Saka.
Yeah.
And I know it's a totally different stage of the game, but it's kind of similar. You know, the pass has to be weighted perfectly, and Matty Smith can just stride onto it, doesn't have to stop. But then you go then the other end of the pitch and you've got the basics there, not doing right. And I'd say when Damien Duff was talking about doing a post-match video, I'd say a lot of it would be on that, because for a team like Shells, getting undone by a set piece our Rovers is just an absolute killer. Like the first goal they scored, that's almost exactly what you expect now from Rovers in terms of the quality. It's Jack Bourne and it's Graham Burke, and it's those, maybe the distances between them and being able to find that space. Because again, without rambling on this, if you look at it, which again I thought was fantastic, like because Bourne's on the ball, Burke can have a look over his left and look over his right before he even has to consider getting the pass, because he knows the ball's going to come to him. He knows Jack Bourne is capable of feeding that ball in with the pace that's needed. So he's able to have that look either side, so he knows exactly what he can do, and then he obviously the finish is just exceptional. But yeah, for Shells, it was definitely the best and worst of what they're about, I think.
And on Shells, David, real quickly, is that if you go back to the Derry game a couple of weeks ago, set piece, they're not a big team, Shells, you know, and they're giving up too many goals from set pieces, and it's a well-worked goal. I think it's Ryan Graydon with a block and he scored a header. Daniel Lafferty scored a header from a set piece against Sligo and then against Rovers. So that sometimes happens with young players. One, they're not big players and Shells are vulnerable from set pieces. But two is young players can get done at set pieces, and experienced players tend to get that little block, know when to drag a guy, when not to drag him. And it's all part of the learning process for Shelbourne. But that's something they'd have to cut out if they want to continue to climb the table.
Yeah, and let's listen to Stephen Bradley, who was also speaking to Damien O'Meara after the match.
Stephen, a lot of debate on the panel that a point was a fair result. Do you go along with that?
Yeah, I think so. I think we had chances to win it late on, but we didn't do enough for 60 minutes to win the game. I thought for 60 minutes we were really poor. The last 30 minutes we show our quality and possibly could win it, but a draw is a fair result. We didn't do enough.
What was the message at half-time? Because it's unusual to see you make 2 substitutions at the break.
Not to be fair, they're 2 injuries. We were going to make different changes, but they were 2 injuries. But we just knew at half-time it was nowhere near our levels.
Did you feel in patches it was going to be a frustrating night? We spoke beforehand about Shelbourne and their defensive structures, the meanest team in the league, and you know Neil's chance, Richie's chance started the second half. Those margins are the ones you have to take, aren't they?
Yeah, but I think we showed the last 30 minutes, if we stick to what we spoke about yesterday, we can really hurt them. And we did that. But the 460, like I said, we were off in every department. We were sloppy in our play, in our press, in our transition. We gave up too many chances. 460 minutes was nowhere near good enough.
What do you put that down to?
We have to look at it. We have to review it. We'll review in the morning as a group, and we have to learn from it.
Is that something you can sense though pre-match, or does it come as a surprise to you when the game starts?
No surprise. I think we've been excellent. We've been absolutely excellent. but tonight we were off it.
Okay, so that's Stephen Bradley there speaking to Damien O'Mara. Vinny, that's actually probably the first time this season I've noticed where Stephen Bradley's actually gone through his team in a way, because previously when they weren't getting results, he was talking them up. He felt the performances were good, but and they were decent when they started to go more direct against Shelbourne. But before that, they seemed to be playing within themselves. But it's just it's an interesting post-match interview in the context of the ones that have come before.
Yeah, I presume there's a huge amount of frustration with Stephen. You've got to remember, I think Rovers have played really well this season, okay? But they've played 10 games and they've won 3. So that's a 30% success rate. So by and large, you can't win a league that way. So something has to give. So he's got to get this team to improve. So the nicey, oh, we played well, all of that stuff will only go so far. They've got to start winning games of football. And in many ways, they're very lucky that we really don't have an outstanding team that have got off to a great start to put them under pressure. But they've only won 3 games of football out of 10. And by and large, that shouldn't be good enough. 10 games in, we're close to a third of the way through the season. I won't use this as a counselling session, but I remember in 19, the likes of Dave had great articles about Dundalk and many others. And we lost 2 games of football before we won the league with 4 games to go. And so while Stephen shouldn't be under any pressure from a managerial point of view, what's going on is not good enough. They should be picking up more points. And I think they will. And I think they'll still win the league by close to 10 points. That's my view as it stands now. But it comes a point where that has to start and they have to kick on. And it's not good enough to be dropping so many points.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, Raf, it kind of felt as if they were going to kick on because those 3 wins, like Vinny mentioned, all came in the last 3 games. Do you know what I mean? It felt as if that, they got that blip. And I was writing about this last week. And having been again at the match against Bowes, like that was very impressive in the sense of, other than the first maybe 10 minutes when Bowes had a couple of chances early on, Rovers dominated the game, totally controlled it, and that atmosphere and all the rest of it, and where Bowes were at, and that kind of derby, and you kind of felt, like considering what they'd done against Dundalk, and then obviously you got the win against UCD after that Bowes game, but that Bowes game in particular, like it just felt as if, that early season kind of blip, I suppose, was out of the way. But then you see some of the issues that they had and not being quite at it against Shells, like again getting done by a short corner and then getting done, even though it was an own goal, they still got done in terms of the overload 2v1 for that short corner. And then obviously even though it was an exceptional counter-attack goal, they still got caught on the hop that way as well. So it kind of does make you think, some of the results and some of the streaks they went on in previous seasons under Stephen Bradley, and maybe
there's a huge chance for Shane Farrell as well.
That's right, and
wasn't there?
He's just kind of caught in between 2 minds, isn't he? He's and even with that again, Jack Moylan, he kind of everything about that was brilliant. He timed it perfectly. He could have played it maybe a second or 2 earlier, and the chance would have been gone. He waited. The timing, everything was brilliant until Shane Farrell had that chance, and it was like he was caught between having the shot and putting it into the back post. I can't remember who it was. He was coming in at the back, but and even the penalty was like, let's be honest, if that had been given, I don't think people would have said, "Oh, what's he doing there?" Do you know what I mean? It's one of them. If it went to VAR, either way, you would have been maybe overruled, or if it had been given, it wouldn't have been overruled, or if it hadn't been given, they would have said, "There's not enough in it." But it could have easily been a pen, So, and then when you come into it, we talked about the squad before about Rovers. That's what's going to obviously have to play into it once the European campaign starts as well. That's going to be another factor to deal with during the summer. So I don't see them. Maybe the way it's gone this season now, we are like 10 games in. I think it's fair to make an assessment of how a season might pan out, and I just can't see. I don't maybe see now that a really long winning run will happen. I think it's going to be a bit of a kind of a stunted season, and I think it could be a very tight one. There could be a few teams in it, and Bowl are still up there. I know they lost on Friday, but like just a manner of, I don't know how they can play and what they are capable of. I think they could be. I don't think they'll drop. They will drop points, obviously, but I can see them sticking out. I think they've got a bit of bite about them, and they still have a few bob to be able to spend as well when the transfer window opens up. But they need reinforcement, so I think it could be an interesting a long out season. I think it's going to be a long season. I think there's going to be a lot of drop points. There really will. I don't think it's going to be an exceptional team that'll go and win it. I just don't see anyone has shown that they're capable of doing that.
Yeah,
on that real quick, Raf.
Yeah.
I while I was maybe a little bit critical of Rovers in terms of only winning 3 out of 10. They're just an exceptional team. I think we're starting to see the real Jack Bourne stand up. Thought he's been exceptional over the last week. When I came out of Dalymount Park last week, I was like, wow, they were streets ahead. Yes, they've stuttered, but I still think they're miles ahead of everyone else in the league. And I think that squad is exceptional. And I think it's only a matter of time before they click. But we are 10 games in, so we have got a good statistical record to go on to back up what Dave is saying. But I just presume they're going to go and wipe the floor with everyone else shortly.
Yeah, and as you said, Bohemians still top of the table at this point, but losing 3-2 at home to St. Pat's in a match that had a little bit of everything, Vinny, I suppose, in terms of the Jordan Flores red card, which looked a little bit harsh from the viewing of the replays that I've seen, and then obviously Bows making a brilliant start with Adam McDonald's goal, which was exceptional. But then Pat's turning things around very quickly with 3 goals, and then again Bows having a bit of resilience in the second half to keep the game tight.
Yeah, it was a funny game because sometimes you get caught up and you say 3-2, 2 red cards, and we hype up the League of Ireland and pretend it was brilliant, but it was a strange game. There was a lull in the middle of it where Pats had complete control. Adam McDonald's finish is exceptional. The technique for that finish is exceptional. I just hate goals going into empty stands behind them. I think it was a brilliant finish. But then Pat's got a goal out of nothing. Chris Forrester, I think, scored. It was from a corner, and I know Owen Doyle is trying to claim it like all good strikers. I'm not sure he got a touch. And then the 3 goals in that 11-minute spell where McClellan scored and Mark Doyle scored really good goals. They were, to be fair to them. And then the game just petered out, and Jordan Flores sending off. It's funny, because of Dalymount, I didn't get a good view of it, but when I viewed it back, I can see why Paul McLaughlin made the decision. The studs are up and it's dangerous, and it's not like Jordan, but it went through a spell probably after half-time where I didn't really see balls getting back into it. And then someone who actually has really impressed me this season, Dean Williams, took his goal exceptionally. But the catalyst for that change was James Clark coming onto the pitch. He was exceptional for Bows. And then Pats ended up hanging on for dear life. There was 15 minutes, and I believe the fan is okay. I'm hoping he is. A fan took ill in injury time. The game had to be delayed, but then Tommy Lonergan came on and got himself sent off. But down to 10-man Bows were exceptional for the last 15 minutes, put Pats under real pressure, and the sense of relief from Pats and their fans when that final whistle went was huge. And what a great couple of weeks for St. Pat's. You were talking about a bit of pressure around that team, and they've won 4 games and they're comfortably second now. So it was a really entertaining game, but there was a sort of 20-minute lull in it where Pats had complete control. But you must give credit for Bows for making a really entertaining game.
Yeah, and the vagaries of a 10-team league and just how things can swing very quickly. And I suppose the narrative and your view of certain teams, I suppose Pats in one way, David, are symbolic of that. But then if we switch over even to the UCD Cork City game, and the UCD looked cut adrift, and they probably still are to an extent, but they really chopped that gap down to Cork City, who themselves would have liked to have kept on the coattails of those teams above. But now there's a little bit of a small gap opening up there. Yeah,
and it's one of them where even I think it's got, I get the sense you look at what Drogheda are doing and so far, like they and the experience there with Kevin McDoherty and stuff, and they look as if they could have enough about them maybe to just not get dragged in. And even from chatting to people even before the start of the season and how the season's gone, I think it's been expected that Cork and UCD would be down there. It's kind of played out pretty much as you would expect. And I think like that's UCD's fourth win of the season. We look at Cork, some of the results they've had at home as well, and I think that home form is going to. I know it's typical to say maybe, but like you go to Turner's Cross and like Vinny would have been involved in some of the best atmospheres and moments over the last decade have been some of those Dundalk and Cork games when those two teams were going at it. Obviously, it's a very different Cork team, but then you look at the kind of the attendances that are there and the kind of bit of belief in the atmosphere that's there. It is going to be so important that home form. That could be one of the things for them as the season goes on that drives them and could help them maybe possibly not be involved in a relegation playoff. I know it's maybe be harsh to write UCD off, and teams would have done it last year. And I think there's a lot less quality in this UCD squad compared to even last year and the players that they would have lost. We mentioned at the start, to say Liam Kerrigan being an example. But I can't see UCD kind of, even though they got that win against Cork there Friday, doing maybe what Cork could be capable of with having a home form, you know what I mean? And I think that could be a bit of downfall. And I think as the season goes on, I think UCD will maybe just be a bit more cut adrift. Could be harsh on Cork. I don't think that they're quite good enough to be able to properly go right up the table. But if they're able to maybe hang on the coattails a little bit of a drop at it and give themselves a chance of maybe getting out of that playoff, I think that's what their aim should be.
Yeah, and they've got Derry at Turner's Cross next. And also just to note, the UCD winner there from Kieran Behan was a great finish from distance as well. Nearly scored a second in similar fashion, but just kind of came back off the inside of the post. Speaking of goals, though, just in terms of the Sligo-Drogheda game, Vinny, and Max Mata, who would have scored the equaliser there. I mean, there was a worry at the start of the season about Aidan Keena and the void that would have been left there. But Max Mata is definitely, and he was there last season, but he's definitely stepped up and filled that void for them.
Yeah, I watched this game on LOI TV, and the last two Sligo games on TV haven't been classics by any stretch of imagination. But I suppose the one thing that's consistent about Sligo is their inconsistency. It's been so up and down. Again, I seen them against Shelbourne, and to be honest with you, first half they were totally in control. And I was texting a buddy of mine saying I'm really impressed with Sligo. It's the first time I'd seen them live, and just Will Fitzgerald looks like he's in really good form. Hartman on the other side, really good player. Liverek is a threat from fullback as well. And John Mann hasn't found his form yet since he's come back. That's been a strange one. But they look a really good side. But Max Mata has been exceptional for them, and he's a real goal threat. And he looks fitter than I've seen him for a long time. And really impressed with him in the game against Shelbourne live. And then when I watched the game the other night, yeah, look, you must give credit to Drogheda. They stick it in there. They're very experienced, a lot of good players. Ryan Brennan, Gary Deegan know how to get the job done, but it's certainly 2 points dropped by Sligo. That's a result they have to get more consistent, because there's an outside chance that Sligo went into European spot, so they'd be really disappointed by not picking up 3 points against Drogheda. But again, must give Drogheda credit. They stuck at it. But I'd be concerned about the sort of up and down form of Sligo, because when you see them at times they're exceptional, and you see them other times they're just not at it. So really strange game to gauge there Saturday night on LOI TV.
I kind of wonder. Sorry, again, I wonder if we've mentioned that, and it's kind of is a team. I kind of wonder if this season is going to be a case of we're going to have little moments for each team, like a patch where Sligo, who are well capable of it, where teams will go on for maybe 4 or 5 winning game runs, and if the table is just going to fluctuate, because no one seems to have found any real rhythm or level of consistency, and the nature of some of the kind of changes and stuff could be difficult to actually get it, you know. And it's almost like in terms of getting those European places, you kind of almost have to time your run right, like on a horse race, you know what I mean? Time your run right, and you could actually find yourself in a really strong position, because at the moment, genuinely, you couldn't hang your hat in any team and say, you know what, they're definitely going to end up X, Y, and Z, you know what I mean? It just seems still to be quite up in the air, other than maybe possibly because of what they've done previously, Shamrock Rovers and their experience and the quality maybe that Derry would have. You're kind of still, I know it's probably bad to say it, and you're kind of still expecting Bohs to go through a bit of a struggle, you know, because that's just the nature of any season, and it's going to be how they actually deal with it, you know.
Yeah, and Dundalk and Derry would probably be two teams that I think be viewed in that same light as well. I mean, they would have been expected to be a bit higher up maybe than where they are now, and obviously they drew 2-2 on Sunday, but it was Stephen O'Donnell's comments afterwards in regards to the pitches and the synthetic pitches specifically, and he was talking about the one at Oriel, and it was regard to injuries, and he feels that it's something that Derry and Dundalk have in common in terms of that being an issue for them. So he said they are the two teams with the most injuries, and we know what the correlation is. It's gone beyond probably a point of not a great surface to watch football on. It's actually injuring players, muscle injuries. There's no give on it. You go up for a header, and if you don't land square on the ball of your foot, you're doing your ankle ligaments or doing your knee. I'm speculating, but all I know is we get a lorry load of injuries, and Derry get a lot of injuries. I'd just be a bit worried about the injury count. Now, he did go on to say that Dundalk's owners are looking at, in terms of where, we spoke about a few weeks ago, in terms of it getting investment in, that's one of the areas is facilities and also the pitch, but they would have to pay for an upgrade themselves. And Derry City, though, their ground is council owned, which is a slight difference and probably would help their case. But Vinny, I think you know this ground up at Oriel and the pitch quite well. What's your view on the situation and what Stephen had to say there?
Yeah, my initial reaction to hearing those comments was, well, we didn't get loads of injuries for the last 8 or 9 years. And then when I thought about it, my first league game at Dundalk, I think it was against Sligo. Robbie Benson broke his leg. Patrick McElhenney done his metatarsal. And 2 weeks later, Chris Shields done his medial knee ligament. Welcome to senior management. And they all happened in Oriel Park. So John Mountney got injured, done his cruciate, playing for Pats, ironically, in Oriel Park. So I suppose statistically, there is a lot of injuries in the ground. I think the maintenance of that pitch is nowhere near the level it was previously. I didn't see the sprinklers on before the game. It wasn't there again. I watched it on LOI TV, but it certainly helps. And the thing about the game is it was 2-2. There was a red card in it. It was action-packed. If you're writing a sort of piece in the paper for it, but actually the spectacle, Oriel during the day is not a good viewing place. It is a little bit special when there's 3,500, 4,000 and the lights are on and it's dark and the surrounding. But as a spectacle last night or yesterday afternoon, it wasn't good viewing. It took away from the match. And the pitch was very bubbly. It was not playing anywhere near. It's never been that good. But if you can say this, it started bad and it's faded. It's gone really poor. And I thought the spectacle yesterday was not good viewing. And I wasn't watching that looking at 2 top teams saying these are the ones going to push Rovers, because of the surroundings and the pitch and everything that goes with it took away from the game. So it's serious issues. And Patrick McElhenney missing again for Derry yesterday looked like just a nothing injury in the game last week on their plastic pitch. So it's really concerning, and it's going to cost Dundalk somewhere in the region. From the last time we discussed this, and I would have been pushing for our previous owners, but the figures were coming back over 400,000 to put it back into a grass pitch. So, and then people say, well, the council will pay for that up in Derry. And it's going to take a long time before the Derry County Council, I would say, rip that pitch up and spend 300,000 or 400,000 pounds. So it's a long way back for the 2 clubs, but I think it's affecting both of them. And in particular, Derry are a better team on grass with the style of play they have, and I think it's affecting them.
Yeah, certainly their home form, I think, so far this season, that's been sort of their Achilles heel for the most part. But like from the Dundalk point of view, given it's a club well, obviously from your view, it's an urgent priority if investment and funding does come in, that pitch gets sorted straight away and they move on to a grass one.
Yeah, so there's it was put down just before P6 took over, and not putting the bounce mat. I think that has a huge effect on it. And it's funny, I've been on the Brandywell pitch and been up there, and I always felt, and our players felt, the Dundalk pitch was better. But you're judging off really low standards, so there's just no give under them. There's some of the AstroTurf pitches that are far superior than what the 2 of them have, and that bounce mat is huge because it gives no leeway once your studs become placed in the ground, and also the bounce of the ball and the levelness of the pitch. So yeah, it is hugely important, but they've got a lot of things to fix around that ground, and I don't know whether they have the money to do it, and it's not going to be an easy solution because the timing of it, you probably have to shut your ground down. You think you've got to get grass onto it, so you can't do that over the winter in the Irish climate. So it means you're buying in stuff and won't bed in, so it's not an easy solution for them.
Yeah. Anyway, at the first division as well, there was action on Friday night. So Finn Harps beat Treaty United 2-0. Waterford continuing their resurgence under Keith Long with a 1-0 win over Kerry. Galway United relentless at the top of the table with 6-0 victory over Bray Wanderers, who had started the day second. So it's at this stage of the season, obviously there's still a long way to go, but it looks like Galway really have that automatic promotion play sort of. It's not sewn up obviously, but they have a very tight grip on that. Athlone Town also beat Cove Ramblers 2-0, and then Longford Town on Saturday night lost 2-1 at home to Wexford. Just briefly in regards to Galway, Vinny, obviously as we said, it's been relentless. I think what is it now, 9 wins from 9, goal difference of plus 26. And 10 points clear Waterford as well. Waterford do have a game in hand, but it's going to be a tall order for Keith Long to turn that one around in terms of closing the gap.
Yeah, I think over time it's early enough not for Keith to be overly worried. But I mean, the way Galway have started the season is exceptional. You've got to give John Caulfield huge credit. In many ways, people say he's not easy on the eye, but I think that's just lazy comment. John probably has to get them promoted. They've had enough goals at this stage, but I think the fact that they started so well, they've got some experienced player then, like someone like Killian Bruder, for example, or they've got forwards who you feel can score goals, and that will help them get out of that league. The fact that they're basically full-time as well is a huge advantage. I think the Premier Division needs Galway, but it also needs Waterford in it. And I think if Galway and Waterford were promoted next year, no matter who's at the expense of, I think the league is set to be in a fantastic, like one of the best leagues of all time. Like almost every team next year there's a good chance that every team will be full-time. That hasn't happened before. That's whether Drogheda and Cork, one of them go down, but Drogheda obviously are part-time, but that hasn't happened before. And I think that will be fantastic. And also the quality of the ground in Galway, the pitch is by and large always really high standard. Facilities are outstanding. Waterford's pitch is really good and surrounding. So I think it's good that the two of them are the ones look likely that are going to be promoted, and it only makes for a better Premier Division and a better overall product from a League One perspective.
And you touched on it there, Vinny, but like compared to say the Premier Division, where we maybe, well, from my perspective, I can't see maybe a huge amount of kind of stretch in terms of teams breaking away. It could be quite kind of congested because Waterford and Galway are full time. You'll see it now since obviously Keaton Long has come in and he's got a hold of things there. You can kind of see those two teams, Galway and Waterford, just kind of extending that as the season goes on. God, I think it might be a bit of too much of a tall order. You never know though in terms of when they play each other and how those games go. That could lead to a bit of a swing. And I think, Vinny's right as well. I think after what's happened maybe last season in particular, it was important for John Caulfield to have this kind of a start to the season, and they really from this point should kick on. But I think as the season goes on, because those two teams are full time, they should just obliterate is maybe too strong a word for it, but you can see them just showing showing that as the season goes on, that they'll just be too strong for the rest of the league.
Yeah, and then in the Women's Premier Division on Saturday, quite a lot of intriguing results there. So Wexford lost 3-1 at home to Athlone Town. Galway United and Shamrock Rovers drew 1-1. Cork City lost 2-1 at home to Peamount United. DLR Waves beat Sligo Rovers 3-0, and then reigning double winners Shelburne beat Treaty United 1-0. And Jonathan Higgins was at the Shelburne match, and he was chatting to Alex Kavanagh afterwards, who was heavily involved in the Shelburne goal.
Alex, you're right in form. You're pinging the ball left, right and centre out there. It's a difficult game for your side there, but all important, got the 3 important points in the end. Yeah,
I think obviously coming in and we knew they've signed a new few players, so we weren't expecting anything lightly. I think it was a tough game. They sat back and it was hard to break down, but I think we did defend well in the end and happy just to get the 3 points.
We remember your screamer against Peamount just before the international break. You went so close, and I suppose, are you claiming an assist for Noel's one in the opening goal?
100% an assist, yeah, I'll take it. But yeah, maybe practice the free kicks a little bit more and hopefully get a few more, yeah.
You were so close to getting, another day you could have got 2 or 3 perhaps.
I know, yeah, sometimes it just doesn't go your way, but hopefully just keep practicing and maybe get a few.
You look so composed and so on top of your game. There are little flicks in midfield, strolling around. You're in good form at the moment. You're in full of confidence.
Yeah, 100%. I think once you get a few games behind you, I think I'm working hard outside the field, and and I'm just enjoying it. You know, I think it's been a long time since I've enjoyed it with injuries and stuff like that, but each week I'm just looking forward to the game day, and I think it's a big thing when you enjoy football, you play better, you know.
You can certainly say you're playing with a smile on your face out there.
100%, yeah. I'm just loving it each week, like training with the girls. I think obviously it's a new set of girls, but I think when players come and go, you know, sometimes it brings a bit of unity, and I think, like, coming from on the girls, we all love it, you know. There's a great camaraderie in the team, but yeah, I think I'm just really, really enjoying it, so hopefully I continue playing well.
That second goal just wouldn't come, and you know, the penalty, you know, you nearly broke the crossbar down here.
Oh yeah, it's just, I think it just wasn't my day today getting a goal, but sometimes you have those days, you know, you just have to leave it behind and hopefully next game.
Still though, as you said, a lot of transition in the team, a lot of changing, you know, players coming, but you still manage to rally, and it's although even if it is only for a few hours, back on top of the table.
Yeah, definitely. You know, I think obviously you just have to take it game by game. You know, you can't expect anything else. It's 11v11 at the end of the day, and once you get the 3 points, look, it probably wasn't our best performance, but at the end of the day you do get 3 points, so we'll take it.
Take the points and run home.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, so that is Alex Kavanagh of Shelburne chatting to Jonathan Higgins, and we've also got live Champions League on Tuesday night, so it's Chelsea against Real Madrid, RT2 and RT Player, with Liam Brady and Richie Sadler joining Joanne Cantwell in studio, and then Ray Houghton alongside Darren Maloney on commentary as well. Coverage starting at 7:30 and kick off at 8. We'll also have highlights of Napoli and AC Milan afterwards. And David, I suppose in terms of the Chelsea side of things, the Frank Lampard bounce hasn't exactly, that hasn't happened thus far. I didn't expect it in the first leg against Real Madrid out in Spain last week, but the 2 league games either side of it, it hasn't. I think maybe bring Graham Potter back in might be the mantra from even some of the more ardent Chelsea supporters.
It's you know what, like, I was again I watched a bit of this game, the Brighton Chelsea game on Saturday, and just again it just kind of summed up the difference in terms of where Brighton were. They were able to go and get a manager like De Zerbi who could come in and build on what Graham Potter, and it kind of should be reflected as well, though some of it's almost forgotten already because of what's happened. Some of the exceptional work that Graham Potter had done there and laid the foundations, but because just of the manner of how that club operate, like they would have known as soon as Potter was gone that De Zerbi was pretty much top of the list to come in, because he knew it was a manager who had a style and a way of playing and an understanding that could go straight in and work with those players and not have to kind of rip things up and start again kind of thing, and need weeks or months to put his stamp on things. And you look at what's happened at Chelsea, and it's just a complete mess, and you kind of wonder, well, like who will they get? Who are they going to get to come in? Obviously, it's not going to be Frank Lampard. Like that's clear. He's only in on an interim basis to try and steady the ship, and it hasn't been possible. Again, working over the weekend, and you see some of the quotes coming from him, and he's talking about team needing a bit of team spirit and maybe needing a bit of hunger and stuff. And then there's extra quotes from him then today saying it's not all about just getting hunger. He has to work with the players and stuff. And it just kind of always seems with Lampard when he's talking, and I would have previously felt as if, you know what, you got a bit of a hard time from some people over here because maybe the English press might have been a bit more friendly to him, but still a young coach. And it should be noted, he is the one who gave Jayson Molumby his professional debut in football over there with Derby County. He saw that potential in him, so I think he should always have a bit of I don't know, kudos for that from my perspective anyway. But it seems sometimes with Lampard when he talks as if, even going back to Everton, that a lot of the problems that are with winning players, he doesn't seem to be capable of actually changing it. You know, it's issues with the players rather than stuff that he can actually influence, which I find a bit bizarre. And it's mad, but at the moment you're kind of thinking like they can't score a goal, they're conceding, they're not playing well, there's confidence is low. You've got a manager who doesn't seem to be capable of actually turning that around. You've got an owner who by the week is becoming less and less popular with fans. You see fans turning on him at the weekend and having to deal with some unrest. You look at where they are in the table and have a look. Could be wrong. I might have to just double check real quick. Are they're only a few points ahead of Crystal Palace now? We've had a bit of a bounce since Roy Hodgson went in. Like you're kind of wondering now, how far can Chelsea actually drop, rather than where can they go looking ahead. That's now where you would imagine Chelsea fans who are going there week in, week out and see the kind of state they're in. That's going to be the concern. Like how far are they actually going to drop before the end of the season? Because regardless of the individual quality they have, even before Frank Lampard came in, they've shown absolutely no inclination to be able to even produce those moments. Just an example would be if you look at some prior to when, say, Ten Hag came in at United, one of the accusations would have been at United players is that, you know, they had nothing about them as a team, which obviously was true, but they had enough individual quality to be able to plug out moments here and there to get themselves up at the table. But even though Chelsea have some exceptional players, they just don't seem capable of being able to do that whatsoever.
Yeah, and barring the what looks very unlikely, Vinny, that Chelsea stage some sort of comeback against a Real Madrid side who are just at home in Europe, have the quarterfinal first legs, have they changed your view on who you think is going to go on and win this particular edition of the competition?
No, not at all. Albeit, I have to say, I was impressed with Bayern Munich until Upamecano decided to just have one and just chuck one in, and the game just went away from him. And but I think it's between City and Real Madrid, and I would hope it's Real Madrid from a personal point of view. Always been probably my number one club, so I just think what the job Ancelotti does, and you talk about man management and how he managed big egos and big names, and I've spoken to a couple of people who've actually worked with him, believe it or not, and he just comes across exceptional man manager, and forget football tactically, just a man manager, and he knows how to get the very best. So I'm hoping it's a Real Madrid go on and win it, and don't see it. Obviously there's no way back for Chelsea at this stage, and that was the only way you could see Frank Lampard in charge next year, if Chelsea would go on and win a Champions League, but that ain't happening now, and I think his time is up, and he'd probably be replaced before the end of the season, I would say, now, to give someone a chance, 4 or 5 games with no pressure before next season to assess the squad.
Yeah, and then the notable thing also about Chelsea's defeat at the weekend to Brighton, of course, was the Evan Ferguson injury, David, and I suppose the blow of it beyond, and it maybe, if from what De Zerbi said, it's not as bad that it would end his season. I think it seems to be a couple of weeks potentially, but I suppose the big blow is they have a big FA Cup semi-final coming up, and it looks like he's unlikely to be able to feature in that.
I know, yeah. And to be honest, I was half thinking of trying to get over to actually cover the game, just because there is that strong Irish influence. I don't think that's going to be happening. Although there does seem to be a bit of confusion, because I think in the aftermath of the game, De Zerbi said, yeah, it's going to be a couple of weeks, but then just afterwards then said it's going to be assessed again at some point today or tomorrow. So there could be some news that could actually come on that, depending on how it is. And we've already been here before with Ferguson, haven't we, with the incident with Fabinho, where luckily it was not an Achilles injury or even the knee injury when he just had the bone bruising. But it's just desperate for him, because he was doing well in the game. This is the thing as well. He was looking to trade. He had a good shot, and he looked as if he's again just continuing on that just consistency of form, and was looking impressive. So hopefully it is a case of it's a couple of weeks at most, and. Although I'm sure, as I said, considering De Zerbi said it's going to be assessed again, I think at some point today there could be further news on that later on, so it's one to keep an eye on for sure.
I spoke to his dad, Raf, this morning, right? So
go on, here's the news.
So the bad news is, I purposely, when Evan gets injured, I don't ask him how the injury is, because in case I let it slip, and the world we live in now, it's saying something on here would be across the UK media in 2 minutes. So I actually purposely didn't ask him, other than to say there's a right gang going over for next week's semi-final, and unfortunately it looks highly unlikely Evan's going to be involved. So I just hope now Brighton win, because wouldn't it be great to have one of our sort of up-and-coming talents involved in an FA Cup final? And I'd say it'd be difficult for him to imagine being 18 and highly likely you're going to start against Manchester United FA Cup semi-final in Wembley. So it's just part of his development, having to deal with the disappointment of that, because in many football careers you get these things that just happen to get injured at the wrong moment, that things go against you. So it's part of his development, and unfortunately I don't have his exclusive for you on that one, Raf.
And
if you look, I thought you were building up to something there.
I was going to say, I'm going to be straight on to you after this, Vinny, for the 42. I'm going to have, as soon as this pod is finished, I have the lineup. But even if you look at it in terms of timing, and again, it's right, everyone knows the talent he has, but timings for certain moments, so unfortunate, because he would have been coming up against the United team that has probably no Varane, no Martinez, Harry Maguire is suspended. Their absolutely decimated at the back, and it could have been a game that you would have seen him actually properly have a serious influence over as well. Now, listen, he would have probably had it regardless because of the form he's in and the kind of the temperament that he's shown since he's come in. But it's just like, it's prime for Brighton to go and do a job on United with the manner of this week as well. They're playing.
Well, you would say Brighton are probably favourites for that game. Would that be fair?
No,
there's not a lot in it.
No, I think it's a very even game. I think if you're going to just go off, say, the league table, United would be favourites just because they're obviously ahead of Brighton in the league and they've had some. But then if you look at maybe where teams are at as well in terms of moments in the season, Brighton are in good form. United, they're going to be coming back from a game in Europe, and that might dictate a lot of in terms of their form. Not so much their form, maybe a bit of the mood or the momentum that's around them, because they look very impressive against a very poor Forest team yesterday. Bruno Fernandes is going to have a week's rest because he's suspended for that game. But it's just the way Brighton are at and what they were able to do against Chelsea. And well, Chelsea are in a much different place than United, but United are struggling at the moment defensively with the numbers who are going to be missing for that game,
Yeah, and we started this week's podcast talking about Irish players developing and kind of building. So I wanted to mention Jayson Molumby, Vinny, because after the Ireland-France game, you specifically highlighted him as one of the star performers from an Irish point of view. Really impressed you. He's having a good run with West Brom at the moment. Scored a couple of goals at the weekend against Stoke, which actually led to them winning that game. And it's 4 goals and 4 assists now for the season, and almost all of those, bar I think 1 assist, all have come since January. So he's just in a really rich vein of form.
Yeah, and I think also the performance against France, it's amazing. I imagine players take huge confidence out of that, and you're playing against some of the best players in the world, and but his form has been exceptional, as you said, 2 goals the other day. And I think I wouldn't rule out West Brom having a run at getting into the playoffs. They're 3 points behind Blackburn in 6th, so it's not undoable, and it would be great for like himself. Obviously, Darragh O'Shea being injured at the moment, but getting players like that back into the Premiership. So it will be an interesting watch to see how they do. But I just felt going back to the France game, we talk about the game changing or Ireland changing, and players that play for Ireland are now technical and like to pass it and all of this stuff. But what was brilliant about Jayson Molumby that day was the guts, the sort of rolling up his sleeves, having no fear of who he was marking. And if you happen to play for Real Madrid, so what? Like, you're getting a kick in the backside off me, and you need that blood and guts and that bit of will to win. And but it's not just that. I think if he adds goals to his game, I don't think he'll be long at a West Brom. I think a Premiership club will come in for him. But he's good. He's in a good place where he is. Play week in, week out at Championship levels, and I think he'll end up at a higher level if he continues his growth. It's been exceptional, and really, really pleased for him, because comes across as a good guy. You'd like him on beside you when you head into battle, for want of a better word.
It was to you, David, actually, because it was just reminded me of a piece that you had done, I think, where you were talking to him and Darragh O'Shea, and it, like, the difference it makes when you have a happy place where you're at, in terms of, like, obviously I'm sure he was happy enough at Brighton, but he wasn't getting game time. But here he has like a really good mate in the shape of Darragh O'Shea, and I remember there were some really funny lines in it as well. I think is he living in the house with them or something as well? I think there was stuff like that. But it makes such a difference, and it seems to be coming out in his game as well.
Yeah, I think the difference maybe, obviously, his deal from Brighton actually to West Brom was made permanent at the end of last season, just because of the games he played. I think it was like a trigger in the agreement that had been done. But the difference then, obviously, when Carlos Corberán came in. And I'm trying to remember now what Premier League job came up this season, and I think Corberán they wanted him for it, and he turned him. I can't remember who it was now. It's actually totally escaped me. But anyway, he signed a new deal.
Wasn't Leeds or something, was it?
And do you know what? I think it was. I think you're right. I think it would have been Leeds when Jesse Marsh left. And obviously he ended up signing a new deal. But yeah, like I went over and just met himself and Darragh O'Shea, just because they are a bit of the odd couple, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, Molumby was living with him until Darragh O'Shea and his partner had a baby. So basically, it's a lot less stressful to have a newborn in the house than it is to have Jayson Molumby not going to go to your house, according to Dara. But no, it's just that is funny. But even little things like, and it was nice like getting invited in to go and have a game of pool with Molumby, and I kind of maybe had I'd big myself up in terms of my own ability to play pool, but I was brutal and he hockeyed me, and he didn't show any kind of remorse in that. He just wanted to make a show me, and fair play he did. But that point that Vinny makes is so true in terms of Ireland and where Ireland are still at and what you still want from a team and like any Ireland team. And I don't think anybody has kind of said, you want to get away from it. You want to have a player like a Jayson Molumby, because if you go back to one of the best performances in terms of against a similar ranked team or quality team, Ireland against Scotland, and Molumby was the one who helped set the tone that game. Obviously, you want to then have those sprinkle of quality, like we saw the goals from Troy Parrott and Michael Obafemi. That's basically the prototype or the template for what you do want from an Ireland team. You want to have that aggression and tenacity and a bit of, not so much nastiness, but just have that in you to put it up to a team and then go and earn the right to go and play, because that's what Ireland do need. And hopefully now with Molumby every day working with a manager who does, again, we started this pod talking about that article that I had done, but Corberan, by all accounts, and how Molumby was saying it, would bring him in and work an awful lot of stuff one-on-one to try and develop his game and get more out of his game. And hopefully now you'll see it. Like just to finish on the point, I remember back in January we went over, and again it was actually West Brom against Burnley. Burnley ended up winning the game. They scored a goal late on with a free kick, but Molumby was the best player on the pitch. He was absolutely everywhere for the whole game, absolutely everywhere. And it was only maybe in the last 15 minutes when Burnley were able to start pegging them back, and coincidentally Josh Cullen then became a bit more influential. But in terms of total aggression and also mixing it with a bit of composure, like Molumby, that's what you want in his game now, to be able to have that drive in him, but then when he is on the ball, have that ability to be able to just keep Ireland going, taking over a little bit. And hopefully that's what he's going to be able to do for club and country, and hopefully he can get back to the Premier League, because if it wasn't for the game we're talking about Evan Ferguson, the injuries and timing, you go back to when he was breaking in under Chris Hughton at Brighton, he was getting in and around the first team and had a very bad, I think, was it a broken leg or was it a knee injury? He had a very bad injury where he was out for the guts of a year. So for him to come back now, hopefully he can kick on and get that bit of consistency in his game.
Yeah, we'll see anyway. We're kind of coming towards the tail end of the season over in England, so but hopefully good momentum heading into the June window. But anyway, we're gonna bring things to a close here. Just to remind you, Shells against Dundalk live on Friday night, but also tomorrow night, Tuesday, that is, there is live Champions League, Chelsea against Real Madrid. But Vinny Perth, thanks a million for taking the time, and also David Sneyd.
No bother.